Hey guys, so I know I haven't seen you in a while because I've had strep throat, and I also know that the vast majority of the building is either quarantined or headed toward quarantine right now. So we're just gonna have to get through this together. You know, times is tough, but you guys are smart, capable individuals, future doctors, lawyers, and Indian chiefs of the world. So I know you guys can handle it. So essentially, all I want to do right now, very, very briefly, is point out some important aspects of the Aztec, Inca, and Mayan civilizations to try to help you out with that chart a little bit. So obviously, when you're filling out that chart, you're going to need to use a variety of tools that have been provided for you to help you. So you're going to need to use your slides, and you're going to need to look at those various chapters that I posted for you earlier in the week. But I want to make sure that I'm drawing your attention to certain things to help you out a little bit. So if we're looking at a map of the Americas, we're going to start with the Aztecs first. So the Aztecs are located in what is basically central Mexico. Well, what is now today Mexico. So the green area. The Aztecs, the Inca, and the Maya, I think, get confused in people's minds, and they tend to mix elements of each one of these groups together to form what they think, medieval Americans were like. But the reality is that each one of these groups, although they do have a lot of similarities, they are very, very different. So as far as the Aztecs are concerned, they are considered to be a legitimate empire. They have an emperor. He is an absolute ruler. And when you guys are looking into the first category for social, I want you to try to figure out exactly what their social structure is like, because I can tell you right now, they have a variety of social classes, and one of which has to do with enslaved peoples that they get through capturing people that lose battles with them. So that's for the first one. As far as their political structure is concerned, I want you guys to think about what it means if somebody is an absolute monarch. How much control do they have? I also want you to try to find information on a tribute system and how the Aztecs were able to govern a large territory effectively. As far as their environment is concerned, I want you to think about where they are located. What is it about where they are located that would make them want to live there? What is accessible to them? What is it that is there that they can use? What is necessary for them to be avid farmers? Now, as far as their religion is concerned, I think that Aztec religion is what people think of when they think of Mesoamerican cultures, because the Aztecs are the ones that are having all of these complex and elaborate religious festivals. They have hundreds of gods. They have these public ceremonies where they are marching thousands and thousands of people up to the top of a temple, ripping their heart out with a piece of obsidian and then throwing the body down the temple. That's the Aztecs, like for real. And the reason that they would do that is because they thought that the only way that the sun would rise every morning is if they sacrificed as many people as possible. So if they, were at war with somebody, they would capture whoever they beat and they would just bring them into the city and then just kill them one by one. Their economics are pretty basic as far as American civilizations are concerned. Like I said, again, you should be looking into the tribute system and explaining on this chart what that means for them. They also have a pretty vast trade network. Try to find out what they're trading. What do they have that is a precious commodity? Now, their crops are going to be very similar as the Incan and Mayan crops as well. So when you're trying to figure out exactly what they might have been growing, my hint to you is that it's going to be similar across the board. Now, as far as their technology is concerned, I think the biggest thing you're going to be looking for is what are they using to make their weapons and tools, because this is going to set them apart from other civilizations. Otherwise, their trade and transportation networks are going to be pretty standard along with the other two. All right, now let's go on to the Inca. So if we got to think about where the Inca are located, They are down in this long stretch of land along the western coast of Central America. They are a long, skinny empire. Now, the Inca have a pretty interesting social structure because they are divided into groups based on their families, and then each one of these groups is led by a chief. So I encourage you to figure out what exactly that social structure is called and what it actually means for the governing of this large empire. Politically speaking, they do have a monarch, and they do have a very, very large bureaucracy. Now, without giving you guys too many hints, I do want to tell you that the Inca are largely a modern welfare state. They are heavily socialist. So there are very, very few privately owned business endeavors, and all production and distribution of goods are managed by the central government. So that's actually going to propel you through a couple of these different boxes as far as finding your information. Now, what's really cool about the Inca is they do have a single official language that they spread throughout their long, skinny empire, and it's something that they push through public schooling. Now, they have really, really good engineers throughout their entire empire. And the reason why I'm saying that they're really, really good engineers is because the Inca don't use iron tools or the wheel, but they're such good stonemasons that they're able to build these ridiculous structures. Now, that being said, they also don't have a writing system. So I want you to think about how on earth would we know what's going on with the Inca? What do they have that we're able to find that tells us so much about them? All right, now, last but not least, let's move on to the Maya a little bit. So the Maya are located along southern Mexico, northern Central America. So they're chilling in the Yucatan slash jungly area over here where the red is. Now, the Maya, I would say, are probably one of the more famous civilizations, and I think it has to do with their calendar that was in the news not too long ago because people thought the world was going to end because their calendar ended and all of that. But the Maya are actually not an empire at all. On the contrary, they're actually a collection of various city states, and each one of these city states has its own godlike king who is in control of everything. Now, as you can imagine, because they have a god king that's chilling over there in the hot seat, um, religion is going to be a major, major part of their life, and it's going to often overshadow everything else. And the Mayans are known for their ceremonies, their games, um, their really elaborate like battle reenactments that they would do. So I want you to think about that when you are looking into the cultural aspect of the Maya. Now, their agriculture and trade is really what linked and supported the various city-states throughout their civilization. They do not have a uniform currency, but they do often use cacao beans, also known as chocolate. As far as their agriculture is concerned, I want you to try to find different types of agricultural practices that the Maya would have been forced to use, especially when they're dealing with very, very dry land or very, very wet land. Likewise, that is also going to be a major influence on the type of building structures that they have within their city states. Think about this. How on earth would you make super wet soil work? What are you going to have to do? And as you guys already know, they have a very extensive written language with a myriad of symbols, which we know as glyphs. We watched that short video where you got to see that they have a ton of different glyphs that mean a bunch of different things. Now, another thing that I want you to look into, especially for the Maya, for the cultural aspects, I want you guys to try to figure out what types of books or, tablets or anything like that that still exists that we have the ability to look at. And I think that in your research, you will find that only one of these really have left anything behind that you would consider to be a legitimate text. So, there is a very, very famous codex that belongs to the Mayan civilization, and I want you to figure out what it is and what it's about. Now, as far as their religious practices are concerned, as I said, religion was a major part of their life. They do have a little bit of human sacrifice, but it is nowhere near as extensive as the Aztecs. I think that people in their minds think that the Maya are the ones that are, responsible for this crazy calendar, killing a bunch of people, ripping their hearts out. But like I said, I think that in our minds, people have, combined various elements of these different groups to form this one identity that belongs to the Americas, when that's really not the case. There's a bunch of different civilizations and empires that existed over time, and each one of these is actually built up from previous civilizations that had lived there before them. So, that being said, I wish you luck on this particular assignment. I think you guys will do a just fine job. If you have any questions, you can email me, and I will be hopefully posting another lecture for you guys on Monday, since you will, again, be at home and doing remote learning. So, have a great day. Be safe.